On this episode, I caught up with Miss Ghana UK 2017 winner, Sabina Awuni. Congratulations, Sabina, on winning Miss Ghana UK 2017.
Thank you so much.
How did you feel when your name was announced as the winner?
Overwhelmed. I think overwhelmed is the first thing that comes to mind, and grateful is the second. I just remember just being in shock, and if anyone has seen the pictures of me when I first won, you see my face and you can tell that I'm genuinely just surprised. Yeah, so that's definitely first thing that comes to mind.
What do you think made you stand out the most because you took the crown home?
Honestly, I'm not completely sure. I think I tried my absolute best to present myself in the best possible manner. So just as a young woman, as someone who's talented, as someone who cares about the culture, as someone who is interested in the things of womanhood, in the things of blackness, in the things of Ghanaian culture, and the things of God. So just kind of putting myself in a way that hopefully I think translated well for everyone else that was watching. But I think for myself on the day, I didn't know how it was going to go. I was just hoping for the best and fingers crossed and praying and scriptures and just everything, yeah.
So is that something that you've always wanted to get into? Or you were just sitting there and you thought, I want to take part in Miss Ghana?
I've seen so many people do it in the past. So I remember when Esther won, I remember seeing all the pictures. I remember just seeing like past contestants win it and just thinking I would like to do that. But I've always been quite shy. And in my mind, I thought, oh my God, how am I possibly gonna go on stage and do a competition with maybe 15 other girls? How am I going to stand out? What's I don't know, special about me that I'm gonna go on stage and I might possibly win it? And honestly speaking, it was just, I think I needed to encourage myself because nobody was going to encourage me to do it. If you want to do something and you have it on your heart, go for it. So initially I was always kind of like nervous and worried and thinking, I don't know if I should do it or not. But I said to myself last year that, Sabina, if you want this, go for it, because you're going to regret it when you're older and you're thinking, I should have applied, but I did it and now it's too late. So yeah, I think I'm just grateful now that I was able to encourage myself and to have family that will also like, yeah, go for it. You've got nothing to lose. If anything, you're going to gain experience. You're going to gain a lot of life skills as well. So
your parents were behind you 100%?
100%. My mother, she was, when I told her that I even wanted, I was even thinking about it. Not that I was entering, but thinking about it. She was already like, oh, I'm going to go for our auntie. Like, she was already in the mood to tell everybody that her daughter was doing Miss Ghana UK. And you can imagine when I won, she was just in the front dancing and just happy and just jubilating. So my mother definitely was like my biggest fan. She was constantly pushing me. My father was interested in it, but obviously not as much as my mother and my sisters. So he was still very supportive, but definitely my mother was front and center into making sure that I had all the cloths that I needed, making sure I looked good when I turned up, making sure that when they were asking things about, Ghanaian culture, that I would be able to research through her and through my grandmas and things like that. So yeah, she was really helpful.
How did you prepare yourself for the big day? Because it can be very nerve-wracking.
Very nerve-wracking, yeah. How did I prepare myself? I did a lot of prayer, and that sounds very cheesy, but I prayed myself through that competition. And anyone that saw me on the day, I was backstage literally praying, and I had one scripture on my heart, which is that, Lord, you have not given me the spirit of fear, but of power, of love and self-control, because I used to have quite a lot of anxiety growing up. And I used to be scared to go forth and do things. But I know that the God that I served has not called me to be a wimp, has not called me to shrivel up into myself, but to really be courageous and to go on stage and claim what is mine and what is rightfully mine. And I believed that I could possibly win it, but I didn't know I was going to win it. So it was just that idea of, okay, young lady, go forth, be confident, do the best that you can. If you didn't win, at least you've tried your best. So it was just me kind of walking in my fullness. Yeah.
So it was good that you took part.
Apparently
crown the winner. Because a lot of people are interested in these kinds of things, but they get so scared what might happen.
It's funny because now that I've won, I go to a lot of Ghanaian events and I meet a lot of young ladies that are always like, oh, I really want to do it as well. I'm thinking about it, and I'm thinking, what's stopping you? What exactly is stopping you from doing it? Is it because you feel like you may not win? Is it because you feel as though, I don't know, you can't speak Chi? Because I've met a lot of people that are like, I was born here, I don't know if I'm Ghanaian enough. And I always tell people like that there's absolutely nothing you can do that can take away from your culture, from who you are, even if you can't speak Chi, even if you don't know much about the Ghanaian culture. Miss Ghana UK gives you a chance to learn. So even being part of the process allows you to interact more with people from the culture. We had one expert come and actually speak to us about traditions in different parts of Ghana, things that I didn't know about, even about northern culture, and I'm from the north. I had no idea about it at all. So being part of it isn't just about, oh, I don't know, it's more about a willingness to learn. Yeah. So be willing to learn, be willing to actually open up your heart, even if you're nervous, even if you're shy, even if you feel like you're not pretty, even if you feel like you're too short, too tall, too skinny. The amount of girls of different shapes and different sizes and skin tones that were present on the day, it would shock people, because people feel like there's kind of like a cookie cutter type, I don't know, a girl that usually wins, and it's not the case. When you actually attend the shows and you see the amount of girls that are there, everyone is completely different, and everyone's kind of, even my hair, that sets me apart, you know. I don't have long hair, I don't have any hair at the moment, but we thank God for His grace, because even through that, people were able to see my beauty beyond the physicalities and see that I'm quite intelligent in what I do, and I genuinely care about a lot of the stuff that I spoke about on the day as well.
As the face of Miss Ghana UK, what do you intend on doing to impact people in society?
Well, that's a very big question. I've got a lot. I'm someone who thinks a lot, but I've got a lot of big ideas, and I know that the Miss Ghana UK Foundation and the organisation have a lot of big ideas themselves. So I am Miss Ghana UK, meaning that I have a responsibility to do a lot of things back here in the UK, but also I have a responsibility to do things back in Ghana as well. So making sure that the two are balanced.
The pageant, along with the Miss Ghana UK Foundation team, had the honour to meet with the President of Ghana, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, who commended her and the organisation for their various social interventions. Whilst in Ghana, Sabina undertook several charity work which the foundation has been actively involved in, such as donating education materials and helped with community development projects.
Even before you became Miss Ghana UK, you got yourself involved in a lot of charities. You were in Tanzania in 2016?
Yes.
How did that come about?
So I graduated in 2015, and when I graduated, I remember my degree is International Relations and History. So that simply means that I care about the past and I care about the future. That's how I see the degree. Tanzania came about because I remember just looking for opportunities to broaden my CV, which I really believe is a big thing, making sure that your resume looks wonderful, basically. When you go to your employer, you can say, I've done this, I've done that, I'm qualified in this, being able to present yourself in the best possible manner. So I just remember researching it, and it was basically like a 3-month project abroad, and you get to live there. Everything is basically paid for, and it's a government scheme. I think it's the Department of International Development that actually pays for part of the project, and what you do is you fundraise. So they want to know how serious you are about what you're doing, so you fundraise up from £800 to £1,000. And it's like, you do that in your own time, you come up with your own ideas and you do it. My target was, I think, £800. And I remember kind of just being worried that no one's going to help me fundraise this money, it's a lot of money. But I put it up, and within, I don't even think it was a month, I was able to raise even over that amount. And I was really surprised that people care more than I guess I thought they did. But when I actually went out there, it was more so, it was called a WASH project, so Water, Sanitation and Hygiene project. And it was about bringing awareness to a lot of the kind of waterborne diseases that affect a lot of people, because a lot of women that give birth and have young children out in these different places, the children tend to die quickly. They die quickly because of simple things like malaria, or just being around water that's kind of infected, or just, so it's about raising awareness and making people aware of insects and disease, and washing your hands simply when you use the toilet. So just little things that people weren't too sure about. And even when I got out there as well, I realized we were doing far more than just that, because we did some construction projects, which was the first for me because I don't consider myself a constructor, but we ended up building some toilets for people that were disabled. And then we also started doing some teaching as well. So we went to secondary schools and we had to really speak to young ladies, because that's really on my heart, about things they can't control to do with your body as a young lady. And you're in an area where people don't understand what you're going through. You still have school, but you have period pains. What do? You don't have any medicine. So just simple things. And we had discussions about how to best help these young ladies as well. And they had some tough questions for us, because they were looking at you looking at me actually, like, well, you're from the West, you've had it easy. What can you possibly do to help someone like me?
What do you think is the best way to provide people that are in need?
I don't know where I heard this statement, but I think it's something that sticks with me, and it's that people don't need a handout, they need a hand up. You don't need to give someone kind of food. Help them to acquire the means to buy the food themselves. Help them. Is that, I think, a similar statement of if you teach a man to fish or something similar. I can't remember what it was, but it's about being able to not just give someone, and this idea of aid as well. I feel like Africa in general, there's a constant like throwing of aid at people, like, here's some money, do what you want with it. And it's like, no, you've got to teach people how to be able to be entrepreneurs, how to develop, how to use talents they have, because I've met so many Africans that are just, the talents they have will blow your mind, but it's about being able to have the business mindset and knowing how you approach companies and organizations.
Let's move on to mental health. That's something that you're currently working in.
Yeah.
You were also on Africa on the Rise. You were part of the panelists. Is this something that you have experienced?
Yeah. So I feel very strongly about mental health. I think everyone that knows me knows that I feel very strongly about mental health as well. I experienced depression. I went through 2 years, quite sadly, of being really depressed. And I remember during that time, I'm a Christian, during that time not being able to effectively communicate my feelings to my friends, to my family, or to anyone around me, and being quite embarrassed because, as you guys are probably I've said throughout this whole interview, I hold God strongly, and when I'm nervous or when I'm scared, I'm always quoting scripture. But I remember that time I couldn't even utter words. I couldn't physically utter any words to say, Lord, I need you. I couldn't even say things like that. So I just remember kind of thinking to myself, I'm going to fail. I'm going to fail uni, and no one is going to understand why I'm failing, and I won't be able to tell them why because I'll be too ashamed. So I remember kind of during the end of me graduating uni, which was a miracle in itself, because I remember I went to my lecturers, I think 2 weeks before the ending of me graduating, and I told them what had happened. I told them, listen, I have been depressed for about 2 years. I've been seeing my GP. If you want me to prove it, I can prove it to you, but I physically, every time I'm out, I feel sick, I'm fainting, I don't know what's going on, but I haven't been able to do my coursework, and I haven't been able to kind of learn the way that I want to. Is there anything that can be done? And they told me, we're going to give you a week to do all your coursework, so do it and hand it in. So I sat in the library for a week, didn't sleep, and I just wrote everything I needed to do, handed it in, and I just remember they were like, okay, you've passed. And I just thought to myself, that's not possible. Surely I must have failed. But I just remember thinking, it's only God, because even for them to have that grace to look at me and say, okay, we're being lenient on you, that alone to me was God's grace. And then to pass as well, that's God's grace, because my parents, I know my mum, she was so scared for me, and she always thought, she knew something was happening, but she couldn't quite explain it, and she couldn't quite put her finger in it, but I know that she was constantly praying for me. So from my own personal experience of knowing how it feels to feel like you are isolated, but you can't explain it, being even invited to do panels with Africa on the Rise and things like that, it gives me a chance to speak about it, because sometimes people look at me and they just say, oh, she's a nice girl, she looks pretty, and then that's about it. And it's like, no, there's more to life than beauty. Beauty is fleeting, that's one thing, but there's really more to life than that. And I know there are a lot of people that you see on social media, they look wonderful, you see them 10 out of 10, you see them nice clothes, nice bag, they've got a good job, but behind that, what is that person going through? Behind all of that, is that person okay? And especially with social media and technology, you text someone like, let's meet up, and it's like, okay, FaceTime. No, invite them for coffee. See them face to face. Because when you're speaking to someone via text can't effectively tell you how someone actually feels. Unless you call them and you hear their voice, you can't actually discern what they're really going through. So we need to be more kind of, I guess, available in calling our friends, making sure they're fine.
Stigma is still attached to a mental health issue, especially within the African community.
Definitely.
Because the moment that you say you have a mental problem, oh, you're mad.
You're mad. That's the first thing. That is 100%.
That is appalling, because we have young people. I was doing my research, and 1 in 10 young children suffer from mental health problem, which is appalling, because a lot of people do not come out and say that they're depressed because they feel like they might be judged, or people might think they are mad. Some people lose their friends based on that. So what do you think can be done to combat this whole stigmatization surrounding mental health?
I think there just needs to be, as a community, there needs to be a complete revamp of how we think, of how mindful we are when people actually come up to us and say, I am going through this. The responses that I had to people when I even was confident enough to say, I need help. If I told you some of the things that were told back to me, you'd be very appalled, because people are they're not switched on enough. It doesn't click to them that this person is on the literally on the edge of anything could happen. They don't feel worthy. They don't feel that they deserve to even be alive. They may feel like, God forbid, killing themselves. And you not being available, you not being sympathetic enough could make them feel like you reinforce the idea that nobody cares about them and they can go off and do whatever it is. As a community, we need to understand that our words do affect, they do impact. And I feel like with our parents and with what they've been through, they always say, oh, but you have a roof over your head, what do you have to worry about? And that whole mentality of, you've had a good life, so what is it that is making you feel this way? Or, I had it worse, I had to walk this many miles to get to the water in the well. And it's like, by no means am I kind of saying that the experiences of the elders that I know aren't kind of grand and aren't big. Of course they are big and irrelevant, but at the same time you also need to respect and acknowledge what young people are going through, because they're going through a lot. And because we feel like we're not being listened to, we just don't say anything. That in itself causes a problem, because now you're shrinking back into yourself. You have a lot of things to say, you're feeling a lot of things, but because you feel like your parents won't understand, your friends may understand, but they can't advise you. They're going through the same things. So who's going to tell who what to do? You're both on the same level. So now you're stuck in a place where even like, for example, the example I give is, I remember when I went to counselling when I was at uni, because I thought, okay, I really want to try and help myself. I want to push myself out of this place. And the lady that I met there was, bless her heart, she was a lovely woman, but it was kind of like a white middle class woman. And I was trying to explain to her that one of the things that triggers my anxiety is microaggressions. So for example, I'll be at work and I'll hear people say, oh, for Halloween, I want to wear an afro. And at that time I had an afro, I had proper like hair. And I just felt, I want to say something, but I don't want to be the angry black girl. So I'm holding it in, and now I'm at work, I'm stressed, I don't know what to say. So just simple things, and you don't want to come across angry or mean, because that is the stereotype of being the angry black girl. So just so many things that can affect how you feel, and being able to effectively communicate that is hard. It's so hard. So when someone is even coming up to you, if a daughter or your niece or your nephew or just anyone is coming up to you, even uttering certain words saying, oh, I'm feeling this kind of way, don't be dismissive. That's the first thing. Don't be dismissive. Don't dismiss what they're saying. Try and listen, try and understand, try to see if there's something that you can do. Because just being that ear, and even I know that a lot of people just say like, oh, it's not a big deal, you'll get over it, you'll be fine. Yeah, they might do. But at least you know that you helped. At least you know that you tried. Because God forbid something bad happens, you can't say you didn't know, because you knew. You just didn't do anything.
As a religious person yourself, do you think that is also stopping people from seeking help?
I think, I wouldn't say faith, but I think our culture plays a big part in it. So maybe being African sometimes, I feel like sometimes we merge the lines between being African and kind of, I don't know, with faith, because I know that how we see things. So I know that I'm from the north, that's one. So juju is real, demons are real, I know these things. But I think when you're having discussions about things of the mind, things that can be scientific, things that can be solved, things that can require medication. If you're speaking to someone who doesn't have the knowledge about these things, they can be dismissive and say, well, it's a demon. It's your auntie from Tamale that's doing you like that, you know, and it's like, okay, maybe it is my auntie from Tamale doing me like that. Yeah. I don't know. What I do know is I can't just sit here and just say, okay, because it's my auntie, I'll just pray about it and it will go. Okay, you're praying. That's a start. That's definitely a start. Again, I'm a Christian myself, so I prayed throughout my whole process. But if you're praying, like I mentioned as well, I was seeing counselling. Even though I couldn't pray, I told my mum, I don't feel well. She would pray for me, but I was still seeing counselling. I was still on medication. I was still trying to get myself out of it. And I know that is not the case for everyone, but I feel like the two go hand in hand. You can't do one and not the other. You can't say, I'm just, for example, if, it's hard to explain, but I always feel like God is using those people in the medical field to help you as well. We can't neglect that. God is omnipresent and omnipotent. He can literally do anything. All the knowledge that we have, all the sciences we have, it is because of God. So if he's made those things available to you to use, to bless you and help you, why are you going to dismiss it and just say, well, I'm just going to pray and it'll be fine? God has put the answer in front of you. He's telling you, take your medication, or he's telling you, go to a doctor, he's telling you, go to counselling, he's telling you so many things. But because we only feel like answers could come in one direction, which is that God says yes or no, and then that's how we see it, and that's the end of it. But God works in so many mysterious ways, so we can't just close our eyes and say, I'm going to pray and that's it. We need to do more.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. It's great. I've learned so much from you, because people do get it mixed up all the time when it comes to mental issue. And you did touch on social media. You see people have it all going up for them, but behind closed doors is something else. I've been told that social media is your highlight reel. You show the best bits, all the best bits of your year, but you don't show any of the worst parts. So. Yeah. Oh, Sabina, it's been great talking to you. So what can we expect from you?
So a lot more projects with obviously Ms. Ghana. So working with young men, young women, young children generally. But I also want to expand, not just mental health, but I want to really dig and look at issues. So actually recently I was helping with a campaign to do with anti-knife crime. And even that, I feel like because of where I live, I didn't even realize it was such a big issue in London, and the fact that on New Year's four black men were killed. Even that, I was like, whoa, that's a big number. And it's sad that when you look at the stats, a lot of Ghanaian people are involved in that as well. So I don't know what needs to be done in the young black community for men, but something needs to be done. So at least I feel like I need to kind of, I guess, strategize more. So even if it's a discussion with someone who used to be in a gang, or someone who can actually effectively help me to start something similar to the Queen's Talk that I did for young men, then at least it's a start, you know. So as long as I can start running and getting it moving, then I'm grateful for that. So God willing, that all goes well.
It shall come to pass.
Amen.
It's been great talking to you, Sabina, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
I can see you doing more and more for the society.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.